There are two things that I am extremely passionate about and that drive me to continue trying to be the best person that I can be. And that is mental health and that is my family. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about why they are the reason that I keep pushing myself to go to a different level, not just in my business, but in my life in general, and why that means that I can't afford to have a plan B and why you shouldn't have a plan B either. So if you're ready, let's dive straight in. So just as a tiny bit of a backstory, I experienced kind of mental health issues way back when I was 11 or 12. I ended up with 20, maybe 25 years of some kind of eating disorders, self-worth issues, body issues and all that kind of stuff. I suffered with severe postnatal depression for about 5 years after I had my two girls when I was 25 and 26. And honestly, back then, I thought that's who I was. It was just something that I had and something that I experienced. And there would have been several times throughout my life then where nobody would ever have known what was going on in my head, because on the outside, I was able to pretend that I was kind of quite confident and I was vivacious and I would go out and do stuff. I went traveling around the world when I was 19, and I've never been scared of trying new things. I've always been more of a why not rather than a why kind of person. But nonetheless, this darkness in my head and the way that I felt about myself and the horrible things that I used to say to myself have meant that now, being on the other side and looking back and seeing, particularly I have concerns about our younger generations now, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But I see a lot of mental health issues in entrepreneurs, which is obviously mainly who I work with. The stats are at least, I think, 64% of small business owners say that they have anxiety or some kind of mental health issue. But even bigger than that for me is, with the work that I do, is that knowing and that understanding, that having experienced the fact that we are a product of our conditioning until we become a product of our consciousness. And so most of us have never been taught about our brains and our minds. Most of us think that who we are is who we are. Most people in the world will live and experience their life within those limitations that other people have put upon them. And it is my absolute dying passion that if I can help small business owners achieve their dreams and have the life that they want, not just a business, but create the life that they want, really step into the vision of who they truly are, I know that the impact on their children is huge. It means their children see what's really possible, not what school tells them possible or what government or what society tells them is possible. I know that when they see their parents becoming, the people that they need to be, the people that focus on their time and their value and creating financial independence and security, but looking after their health and carving out time for their relationships. All of those things are what creates success and what sets our children up for success, because we are the models of possibility. We need to be powerful models of possibility because society doesn't teach them that. Society teaches them how to learn. It doesn't teach them how to think. So that's what I'm really, really passionate about. And on the other end of that is that, when we don't do that, when we don't shift our own identities and our own stories that we can succeed at life, it means that we're teaching our children to live within limitation. Now, I'm not going to go into this story, but I will just let you know that I left my first husband when my children were 4 and 5. And my children are now 21 and 22, and I still see the effects, particularly on my eldest, and it is really, really tough. And there are times when I still go back and think, oh my God, what did we do? What did I do to them? However, I know my power now is in continuing to be that role model and continuing to use my tools as much as I can to help her on her own journey, right? So I get it. I get all the mental health stuff. I get all the self-belief stuff or lack of, and that is why I do what I do. And so it leads me into what I want to talk to you about today, is why you don't need a plan B until you need a plan B. Now, it sounds a bit like oxymoronish, doesn't it? Is that the right word? I don't know. But, when we think about the fact that we know not all plan A's work, not everything works out, and I get that. But I also want you to go and just make sure you've listened to the last week's podcast where I talk about the 5 things to let go of, because sometimes the reason that plan A didn't work was because you didn't let go of these other things. So make sure you go check that out. But not all plan A's will work, but that's the only point in time when you need the plan B. You don't need to go in with the plan B. And here's why. I just want you to imagine for a moment that, you were someone who's preparing to swim the English Channel. Now, if that person showed up for every training session and every time they ate a meal and every time they prioritized rest, if they kept always with that plan B in mind of I can always get in the boat, do you think they would fully show up to every aspect of their training to ensure they maximize the chances of them getting from point A to the other point of the channel? Probably not. The focus on they just focus on maximizing all parts of their training so they can get from A to B across the channel. Another example that you've all heard of is Thomas Edison. He's reported as saying something like, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I learned 1,000 times how not to make the light bulb, or something like that. I'm just completely paraphrasing there. But imagine if he went in with that the plan B was quite dominant. And he always said, well, we can always go back to using candles. Do you think he would have tried 1,000 times and tried 2,000 different elements in that light bulb? Of course not. He would have just gone and stocked up from candles from IKEA, probably. Even though clearly IKEA wasn't around then. I'm just being funny. So if you work on your business and you have plan B taking up a huge amount of space in your brain, you risk never developing the mindset, the skill set, the energy set that you need to reach your big, beautiful business goals. Let's have a look at a time when there wasn't a plan B and what happened. So I think the first thing that popped into my mind when I asked myself that question was like when we were at school. Most of us have always had to go to school because that's just what we do. That's what society says. You go to infant school, you go to baby school, you go to big school, whatever. There wasn't an option for us, for most of us. So what did we do? We focused on going to school, going to our lessons, doing our homework, yada, 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 because that's all that's all we could focus on. And I think relevant to many of us now is that, if you are a parent, you will protect your child to the end of time. You don't have a plan B for that because it's your top value. It's right up there. Like, it's so important to you. So we have to get really clear on where we're having these plan Bs. Now, another one I thought I'd just throw in there as well, actually, I've just remembered, is when we fall in love. When we fall in love, that delicious kind of, we're excited, we go out on dates, all of our focus is on that relationship. We paint